Welcome to Your Money Guides, brought to you by Interface Financial Planning. Hello, today I want to talk to you about investing ethically. Reducing violent crime, trafficking, forced labour and child abuse are clear global goals. The promotion of peaceful and inclusive societies, the provision of access to justice for all, and building effective, accountable institutions that will enforce laws and work towards a more peaceful and just society at all levels are all essential prerequisites for sustainable development. Historically, religion has strongly influenced ethical investing. In the 18th century, Quakers would not invest in the slave trade. Methodists would not invest in industries that would harm one's neighbour, and they supported companies that provided fair employment conditions. Islamic banking shuns investments in alcohol, gambling, pork and other forbidden items. Over the last 50 years, investors have shown an increasing interest in where they invest, and today the investment choice for many investors is determined by their social values and beliefs. These beliefs might be environmental, religious or political, or they may have a desire to do good and make a difference. Friends Provident launched the first ethical fund in the UK, the Stewardship Fund, in 1983, and in the same year the Ethical Investment Research and Information Service was formed as an independent research service for ethical investors. The UKSIF was launched in the UK in 1991, an organisation committed to growing sustainable and responsible finance in the UK. It has a vision of a fair, inclusive and sustainable financial system that works for the benefit of society and the environment. In the year 2000, it became a legal requirement that occupational pension schemes had to declare whether they took account of any social, environmental or ethical factors when choosing where to invest. Since then, the number of funds investing in ethical stocks has increased considerably, driven by growing public awareness about climate change and an increasing focus on the socially responsible conduct of corporate bodies. When Limits to Growth came out in 1972, there was shock, disbelief and denial. Now, almost 50 years later, it's only the flat earthists that are in denial. According to a YouGov poll published in the FT in May 2018, millennials are twice as likely as older generations to want their pensions to be invested responsibly. There's now a definite trend to avoid companies with poor social and environmental records, especially following some high-profile scandals in recent years. While the amount invested in ethical funds is still less than 2% of market share, it's steadily increasing, and it's no longer a fringe activity. It's now a significant market sector, with the result that ethical companies should be part of all investment portfolios for both ethical and non-ethical investors. Watching the development has been inspiring, and it's possible that ethical investment may become mainstream and one of the primary routes to investment within the next few years. So what is ethical investing? Ethical investing depends on an investor's views, and it refers to the practice of using the investor's ethical principles as the primary filter for the selection of funds, stocks and bonds in constructing an investment portfolio. Choosing an investment is based on ethical preferences and is not indicative to the investment's performance. Sustainable investment and finance incorporates environmental, social and governance factors in financial services decision-making alongside more traditional financial criteria. It may sometimes be described as green, ethical, responsible, sustainable and responsible, or ESG, which is environmental, social and governance. It's useful to contrast ethical investments with sin stocks. This refers to companies that are either involved in or associated with an activity that is considered to be unethical or immoral. They include activities which exploit human weakness and include alcohol, tobacco, gambling, sex-related industries and weapons manufacturers. They do vary with culture or religion, so for example alcohol may sit on either side. Broadly speaking, sin stocks sit on the opposite side of the spectrum from ethical and socially responsible investing, where the goal is to seek out investments that yield an overall benefit for society. While there may be good returns available from sin stocks, they are usually shunned by ethical investors who consider where they invest to be more important than the return that they receive. There are three main approaches to ethical investment: positive screening, negative screening, and engagement. Positive screening, or support, involves investing in companies that have a responsible approach to business practices, products, or services. A positive investment strategy investigates products and services with environmental and social benefits, and the ways that companies interact with their employees, suppliers, and the communities in which they operate. Positive issues covered by ethical screening include environmental management and reporting, environmentally beneficial products and services, human rights policies, and supply chain and labour standards. Positive issues are used in combination with negative concerns to achieve a balanced approach to screening, particularly in areas of environment and human rights. Negative screening, or avoidance, means not investing in companies that do not meet the ethical criteria that the fund sets. This is the oldest and best known approach to responsible investment, and it's continually evolving. Negative issues usually include social issues, such as alcohol, tobacco, gambling, and high-interest consumer credit, human rights, environmental impacts, animal welfare, and other ethical issues such as armaments, nuclear power, and genetic modification. Engagement uses the active influence of shareholders to support and encourage more responsible behaviour by businesses. Fund managers mainly use dialogue with the management of the companies in which they invest on issues of concern, though they may also use their voting powers as well. Engagement strategies are not passive. Shareholders use their influence to actively engage with the companies they are invested in on issues around transparency, sustainability, and good governance. Some ethical investors have viewed engagement as a naive strategy because they could be overruled at an AGM by others who vote from narrow self-interest. However, there is some evidence that given the right circumstances, an engagement strategy can produce positive results. We invest to make a return on our money, and the same principle applies to ethical investment. The difference is that ethical investors decide that they do not want a return regardless of where it is coming from. If necessary, they're prepared to accept a lower return and put the actual return second to investing in funds where they can make a difference. It's worth noting that recent experience has shown that investors don't always have to sacrifice return, and many ethical funds produce a return which at least matches and in some cases exceeds the return from non-ethical funds. In any case, for ethical investors, return is more than about financial return, and the feel-good factor is also a value. A good example of the additional value is shown by the WHEB using their impact calculator, which illustrates the effect of their investments on renewables, carbon dioxide emissions, water saving, recycling, and so on. The investment process is underpinned by 5 key principles. Firstly, capitalism and capital markets work. You will obtain a return from the market over the medium to long term. Secondly, risk and return are related. In order to obtain a higher return, you will have to be prepared to take higher risk. If you are not prepared to take a higher risk, you will have to accept a lower return. And third, diversification is your friend. By holding the entire market, you minimize the risk of holding each individual stock towards zero. The fourth key principle is that cost matters. Transaction costs, expenses, and taxes all reduce returns, so it's best to aim for the most cost-efficient route to obtain market returns. And finally, structure explains returns. The portfolio structure is vitally important, and it's essential to have the right balance of growth, value, large and small holdings to obtain the market return. When you choose to invest in ethical stocks, funds or bonds, you're restricting your access to the capital markets. Many of the funds that you exclude will produce good returns, and you are choosing not to expose yourself to those markets. The ethical stocks and bonds that you choose will generally be smaller in size and may be higher risk and more volatile. One of our core principles states that risk and return are related so that it's possible that you will obtain a higher return. You must be satisfied with the higher volatility that such funds could experience. In limiting your investment choice to ethical funds, there will be less diversification in your portfolio, and also smaller stocks may be more expensive to trade, which may increase costs. An investor could choose to invest in one of the many ethical single company shares that are available. However, in accordance with our core investment principle regarding diversification, we believe that investing in a single company is extremely high risk and not suitable for our clients. In order to achieve sufficient diversification, an investor should hold at least 30 stocks, and preferably 100, and this would represent a huge amount of management and administration for a small investor. In addition, we believe most investors do not want to spend time following the market on a daily basis, reading the company management reports and managing the administration of buying and selling. The investor would incur a cost in both time and money. Therefore, we believe that most investors prefer to invest in funds instead of single company shares and pay a small charge to a fund manager. Some ethical investors may choose to invest in esoteric company shares merely because of their ethical criteria. These investors may not be concerned about financial return, and they may be even prepared to accept a loss. While such ethical principles are to be respected, we believe that such shares should not form part of a balanced investment portfolio, which has been set up to secure the investor's financial security. In line with the vast majority of independent financial advisors, we are not authorised to provide advice on single company shares. So if an investor wants to invest in single companies, they would have to engage the services of a stockbroker or do it themselves. So what about personal values? While there is no evidence that ethical investors are on a whole nicer people, there may be a reason for considering the possibility. Our values exercise has shown that our clients are more likely to share the values of compassion, respect, contribution, honesty and fairness. It's those values which predispose them to care for the environment and respect the world in which they live. If the investor's values include personal power, wealth, victory, self-worth, and revolve around the self, they are less likely to be so. While browsing the internet, we found a criticism of an investor investing ethically because they were doing something that the commentator did not approve of in another area of their life. We are all human, and none of us are perfect, and we suggest that if you live ethically for 90% of the time, that's a pretty good achievement. We believe that the fact that ethical investors have recognised that they have a choice and they choose to take action makes them inclined to take similar responsibility for other areas of their life, and they aim to live more ethically. Ethical investment is about making a choice, and in making that choice, a compromise has to be made. There is no such thing as an absolutely 100% ethical investment, because it's bound to be restricted by the physical and human conditions. This does not mean there is no point in making the decision to invest ethically, and being 10% ethical is better than none at all. We all make compromises. We may be very careful about recycling, but we may not be as careful about what we eat and how we travel, or in other aspects of our life. We are all on a journey and we have to start somewhere. Mitch Anthony believes that the role of the financial planner is to help clients use their money to make a life rather than use their lives to make money. Mitch says that people are happier when they achieve the right balance between consumption and contribution. People want to enjoy life, but they need to contribute and feel a sense of purpose, and they're concerned about their legacy. It's these people who are more likely to be concerned about the environment, about climate change, about education and about fairness, and also about their legacy. The people who achieve balance and have a sense of purpose are happier and more giving, so that we believe they are on a whole nicer people. Thank you for listening. For more information, visit our website at interfacefinancialplanning.co.uk.